Hi, my name is Miuli Changkomine. I'm a junior in high school in San Jose, California, and I worked on my project looking at the connection between ADHD and attachment. And I chose this topic because I just found it super interesting and, yeah, an interest in neuroscience. So in this presentation, I'm going to be looking at the link between ADHD and attachment, specifically with the body of research that looks at the role that attachment style plays in the development and expression of ADHD in children. And my paper will be looking at the connection through that, and specifically into the connection of insecure attachment and ADHD. And within that, there seems to be initially a bigger connection between disorganized attachment and how this plays into treatment in families. So the introduction, I'm going to start with how ADHD, most of the causes of it remain unknown, and it's a question that researchers have been looking at for a very long time now. And it appears to be a connection between genetics, environment, or developmental issues in the central nervous system. But generally speaking, there's no clear cause that we can find. And it frequently runs in families. 1 in 4 children with ADHD have a parent with ADHD or another close family member. And prematurity can also have an increased chance of ADHD, but there's no clear answer. And I'll be looking at the connection between ADHD and specifically through environmental factors, um, would be attachment. So ADHD. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is a neurobehavioral condition that is characterized by inattentiveness, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. It is characterized into 3 main subtypes, which is impulsive hyperactive, inattentive, and combined. And these 3 categories just are different in the outward appearance of ADHD symptoms. Um, it is a pretty common neurobiological disorder affecting 9.4% of children in the US and 2.8% of adults worldwide. It is more commonly diagnosed in boys than in girls, and the severity of symptoms are often very varied. And approximately 6 out of 8 children with ADHD have moderate to severe ADHD, which significantly increases the chances of comorbid or co-occurring conditions such as behavioral or conduct problems, learning disabilities, anxiety, or depression, and the median age of onset is usually 6, but the more severe the symptoms are, the earlier age of onset, and has a general lifetime prevalence of 8.7% and 4.4 prevalence in adults from 18 to 44. It is clinically diagnosed using comprehensive family history, school performance, environmental factors, and a physical examination. The primary criteria for ADHD is inattentiveness, hyperactivity, and impulsivity, which then lead to peripheral issues, including inadequate social skills, poor peer relationships, easy frustration, and strained family relationships. Treatment varies across the US, but is generally speaking treated with a mixture of medication and behavioral therapy. And medication is still the most effective treatment, with an estimated 70% of diagnosed students having used medication to treat symptoms. Behavioral theory is the idea that a bond formed between an infant and initial caregiver works as a defining framework for the human relationships across the lifespan. Initial attachment that infants have with their caregivers create the foundation for an individual's future relationships and behaviors. And the basic idea is that infants need a consistent, nurturing relationship with at least one sensitive caregiver, which will then allow them to develop into healthy adults. And the lack of such will result in atypical behaviors and risk factors to psychopathology. And the collaborative works of John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth through the later 20th century is what developed the current understanding of attachment theory. So quickly into the history of attachment theory, it was developed by John Bowlby, who was a psychoanalyst studying distress in infants separated from their caregivers. And he emphasized that the ties between a child and a mother has more of a social emotional aspect than compared to the secondary drive or oral gratification theories that previously existed. And at the time, it created a connection between human development and the modern ideas of personality and emotional regulation. And he formed a relationship with Mary Ainsworth. And she looked into the relationship um, and created the strange situation experiments, which offered new perspectives into individuality based off infant attachment. And it was an experiment that has a process of 8 3-minute episodes where children are introduced to situations where they're with their mother, who will be introduced, separated, and then reunited. And the children's behaviors are observed through their reactions to their mother leaving, how they acted around a stranger, exploration patterns, and reunion behavior. Based off her findings, Ainsworth initially identified 3 attachment styles: secure, insecure avoidant, and insecure ambivalent. And the 4th subtype, which is insecure disorganized, would be later added by Mary Main and Eric Hess. Attachment types are categorized into 2 main types, which is secure and insecure. Secure attachment is used to describe individuals who are raised by a responsive, safe, and secure caregiver, resulting in a healthy, positive view on relationships and themselves. On the contrary, insecure attachment results from childhood experiences that fail to meet a child's emotional needs appropriately, and they're generally categorized into 3 main subtypes: anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. Now we'll be looking at whether there is a connection between attachment style and ADHD. Empirical research has consistently found links between attachment insecurity and attention problems such as ADHD. More importantly, there is suggested to be a bidirectional relationship: how ADHD hinders the ability of an infant to form secure attachment with a caregiver, and insecure attachment aggravates ADHD symptoms. Polini and colleagues in 2019 found a meta-analysis that investigated the body of research on the association between attachment and attention problems, and the results found that children with insecure attachment exhibited more attention problems than those with secure attachment. Sempio and colleagues 2016 conducted a cross-sectional study finding that children with ADHD scored lower on attachment security in both home and school environments, supporting the hypothesis that insecure attachment is related to ADHD. Another study by Komen and Cole found that the relationship between attachment security and autonomy in 84 adults recently diagnosed with ADHD found that 18% of adults with ADHD are securely attached compared to the 59 in general population, concluding that insecure attachment and autonomy problems negatively affect psychological functioning in adults with ADHD. Clark et al. Study found a bidirectional relationship. ADHD hinders the ability of an infant to form secure attachment, and children with insecure attachment devote their attention partly at all times to safety and the caregiver, implying that this initial split attention impairs self-regulation development that exacerbates later ADHD symptoms. And lastly, a longitudinal study confirms this relationship, finding that adolescents with early attachment insecurity, often in the forms of deprivation, shows more severe symptoms of ADHD compared to those with secure attachment. ADHD and insecure attachment has a clear association, but within insecure attachment, there seems to be a stronger connection between ADHD and disorganized attachment. Looking at these studies, Frank and colleagues in 2017 found that there is a higher occurrence of disorganized attachment amongst children with ADHD as compared to children without. Both Thorin and Skolkins found that disorganized attachment plays a role in the display of symptoms in children with ADHD. But interestingly, a study by Pinto and colleagues in 2006 found that did not locate a significant link between disorganized attachment in children and later childhood ADHD. They found that 7.8% of children met the criteria for ADHD and 10% for possible cases, which is not higher than the general population. ADHD not only has an immediate effect on the individual, but also on the family. The presence of ADHD within a family can have effects that influence all aspects of family dynamics and attachment within the family. Families of children with ADHD often have more outbursts of parent-child conflict, higher parenting stress, lower parental competence. ADHD within a family can often disrupt typical patterns of attachment within a family and poses more challenges, which are then associated with higher levels of stress and strain in relationships. Looking at the studies, Dallas and colleagues in 2011 studied the dynamics between attachment themes in a family with ADHD and conduct problems. It was a case study of a family with ADHD and children and found that it significantly affects family and negatively influences the dynamics within a child or in a family. Johnson and Nash looked at a literature review that looked at the impact of children with ADHD on families, and they found higher levels of conflict. Similarly, a systematical review by Dialt's 2009 investigated how parenting can have an effect on children with ADHD and comorbidity, and the findings found that parents with ADHD have higher parenting stress as related to parenting. Rebo et al. In 2016 conducted a meta-analysis looking at the non-pharmaceutical options for treatment for ADHD in children. They found that attachment-based interventions are proven to have positive impacts on ADHD in children, including treatment focused on parenting and family therapy. So this review shows that there is a relationship between ADHD and attachment and shows an association that allows for better understanding of ADHD and how treatment can therefore be oriented around this research. The development of ADHD through the lens of attachment theory has a significant effect on the individual as well as their family. Through this review of empirical studies, the link between ADHD and insecure attachment, particularly disorganized attachment, becomes evident regardless of age in both children and adults. Furthermore, the relationship between ADHD and attachment suggests it to be bidirectional, meaning that neither is that completely at fault for the other. This means that ADHD may hinder the ability to form a secure attachment, while at the same time, insecure attachment worsens ADHD symptoms. Children with ADHD can also influence the family dynamics, leading to increased stress and conflict, particularly between the caregiver and the child, suggesting that family-oriented treatment should be another part of treatment. The reviewed literature also implies that while a link between ADHD and attachment is supported by a significant number of research in the field, there still remain some gaps in understanding the connection. The comprehension of this relationship would perhaps benefit from longitudinal studies and controlled trials. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Another very interesting neurological presentation. I'm curious, like, is there any evidence to suggest that like ADHD in parents affects their ability to form secure attachments with their children? You may have addressed this, but it's like both ways, right? Like the parent with the kid and then the kid with the parent.
Yeah, or attachment for parenting is formed from their initial attachment, so their attachment style will affect how they parent their child. So most of the time, because ADHD means a higher chance for insecure attachment in the parent, that will transfer into the child because that's how they parent their child. So yes, it would.
Gotcha. And it feels like this is kind of like a snowballing effect, right? Like, is there anything in your research that shows how to kind of stop this, I guess, continuous process, parent and then kid and then parent and then kid?
Yeah, so that's why I think that family like therapy and treatment or educating the parent when educating this child is an important part of treatment because a lot of the times when children have ADHD, it means higher parental frustration, and then they're more likely to have negative reactions, such as getting mad, yelling at the children, which leads to insecure attachment and a negative relationship. So yeah, just being more aware and educating these parents on how to better parent their children with ADHD, I think would help.
Gotcha. And are you planning on continuing this research in any way?
I think I might, yeah. I might look into how, or most of my studies on insecure attachment and how that affects it, but I might look at how secure attachment can actually like counter the effects of, or how it could impact ADHD.
Very cool. Well,
Thank you.
very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.